Okay, so my name is Dave Munger and I'm a librarian with Sacramento Public Library. Welcome to this month's genealogy workshop, ThruLines, Ancestry's Best Feature. Okay, now I'm going to repeat a few quick notes before we get started. All microphones have been muted to limit distraction. I'll change the setting to let you unmute yourselves after the talk concludes so you can ask questions of our speaker, James Baker. Today's session will be recorded and available on our YouTube channel. I'll put the link to our YouTube channel in the chat. Because we are posting this video for privacy reasons, we will not enable you to turn on your own video. If you have technical issues during the presentation, please send me a message directly in the chat and I'll do my best to help. I will also note all questions to be asked during the Q&A after the presentation. If you have questions about future genealogy presentations or to receive a copy of the handout, please email contact@saclibrary.org. I'll also post a copy of the handout to the chat for download. Okay, now I'd like to introduce today's speaker, James M. Baker, PhD. Mr. Baker has been an active genealogist for the past 15 years. In 2011, and with a renewal in 2016, he completed the board for certification of genealogists, requirements to become a board certified genealogy, with a specialty in German genealogy research. He also specializes in Midwest US, early American research, and DNA, which is what we're covering today. He was an officer of the Sacramento German Genealogy Society and contributed numerous articles to its quarterly publication, Der Blumenbaum. He also has written articles for the National Genealogical Society magazine and the NGS Quarterly. He volunteered for over 10 years at the Sacramento Regional Family History Library. He has presented numerous webinars on Legacy Family Tree, the Board for Certification of Genealogists, the Southern California Genealogy Jamboree, and the Brigham Young University Family History Center. Beginning in 2012, he has given genealogy presentations to over 50 genealogy societies at local, regional, and national genealogy events. Mr. Baker earned a PhD in sociology and social psychology from the University of Utah. He's retired from an aerospace and business management career. In his work career, he consulted for many large companies, including Boeing, General Electric, Lockheed Martin, and Raytheon. He has been an adjunct professor of sociology at UCLA and USC. His most fun job was being the piano man at Shakey's Pizza Parlor. I don't think that job exists anymore. His presentation today is ThruLines, Ancestry's Best Feature. James, I'll pass the virtual mic to you now.
Whoops.
What happened there?
Something, what happened here?
Okay, I think you're showing your screen there.
Whoops, that's not the one. Maybe it's that one. There it is. Okay, we're good. It took them just a moment here to get everything set up, but here we are, and we're back in business. Thank you, David, for that introduction. And we're going to be off and running here. All right, here's my superlative statement about Ancestry's best feature. Absolutely, the ThruLines. It will do the best things for you. In fact, it might be the thing that we say, why didn't they do this all the time? Or why didn't they do something like this? We have always been very interested. We're most interested in Ancestry if you're a genealogist. And the reason is because they have, in round numbers, about 3 times as many people in their database as the others. Like MyHeritage is good stuff, but Ancestry, they've got so many more people, you are much more likely to find good answers, good results if you're doing business with Ancestry. And so that's why we like to focus on Ancestry when we're talking about finding good DNA results. I have a small history lesson. It doesn't go back that far, just back to 2019, because this was about when we first had this new thing, the ThruLines. Before that, we had a thing that was called DNA circles. I'm not sure if we had much of anything that was helpful before then. We're always looking for things to help us. We'd like them to give us more. We'd like to look at a person. We find a good result, a good person. We would like for Ancestry to say, we know who that is. You know, that's on your mother's side. That's your second cousin, and so on. Well, actually, these ThruLines will come as close to that as anything. And before that, they had a thing called the DNA circles. So if you've not been working with Ancestry for a while, you might still think about DNA circles, or you might have really liked the DNA circles because they indeed were useful. And they had those ancestor hymns. But now, Ancestry, from time to time, they make some changes. And so they have said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to replace the DNA circles with ThruLines, and it'll be a wonderful thing for you. Well, sometimes we're always suspicious of these changes, and we wonder, is the new change really going to be better? Well, in this case, it really is. So here's the old way. We used to do business with DNA circles. We'd click on that, and they would give us a variety of information where they focused on particular ancestors, and they would say, these are all the people who also are connected the same way you are with that particular ancestor. Now it's going to be kind of the same way, but better, because this is the ThruLine thing. And over the next little while, I'm going to tell you how and why it is so much better, and indeed why the superlative thing that this is indeed the best feature. So we're going to click on ThruLines and get in there, and that's what they're going to give us, is all this good information. At the time Ancestry made this change, they sort of felt like they should explain this change, and so they gave us they answered some questions and answers, and then they even gave us kind of a tutorial about how to use it and why it was so good. And so these are some of the things that they said. They tried to explain why they're taking the one away and putting another in its place. I don't know why they could not have kept both of them, but they didn't. So they said, why are these going away? And they're saying it is because we're going to have something even better that will increase the number of potential common ancestors that you are going to find, and you're going to find more discoveries, and so it's a better deal for you. So here's what they said. Unlike DNA circles, ThruLines uses public and searchable ancestor member trees in addition to your own tree and your matches trees to find common ancestors you may share. Now, see, this is the trick, that they are going beyond just what the other person puts in there. The other person puts in a partial tree and goes part way, and maybe because you've worked harder at it, you've got a more lengthy tree. But Ancestry, with its magic, they're able to attach those partial trees that the other people put in, and then they connect those trees with you. So continuing on, this allows Ancestry to suggest potential common ancestors beyond even what you have in your tree and your matches tree, doubling they're conservative here. It's really more than that. Doubling the number of common ancestors you may share with your matches. Now they say, okay, what'll happen to the circles? They're gone. The ancestor hints, they're gone, but they say not to worry because shared ancestor hints will be replaced by a feature called common ancestors. That's kind of a misnomer. That just simply means they're going to find people with whom you share a common ancestor. And so then going on your list of DNA matches, you will see a green leaf on the matches with whom you share a common ancestor. And you click there and away you go. What data will you lose? Well, they had another nice feature where they said, here we've got some possibilities for you, because here's some people, they matched other people in the circle, but they didn't match you, and that was kind of nice. Anyway, I had some 22 different circles. Some people have more, but on the positive side, we're going to have something even better. So here we are. We're going to talk about clicking on ThruLines to see what they have. Now, just another word about the tutorial. You can see here that Ancestry really wanted to start us off on the right foot, and they told us, what we've got and how to use it, and some other items here, like are they accurate, and some things like that. So I've kind of blown up a couple of these. Are ThruLines accurate? ThruLines does not validate your relationships with DNA matches. However, it does make it easier to see relevant source information, such as public or private searchable family trees, historical records, and shared DNA, to help you reach your own conclusions about how you might be connected to your DNA matches. Now, here's the thing. Ancestry will sometimes say, this is your matching person, but they might get it wrong, because maybe the person had the right name, maybe the person was even in the right time period, maybe even the right location. And once they get that close, maybe they think it's the same person, but then they leave it to you to be sure. Now, I'm going to tell you, though, for starters, they are mostly accurate. I will tell you that I have really worked on my ThruLines, and I'd say at least 97% of them are accurate. And I'll even give you some examples of a couple that aren't, and why that can be the case. And then they're going to tell you that, yes, you get to use ThruLines, but in order to do it, you need to post some kind of a tree. And the better the tree that you post, the more they will help you. That's the important point that they made there in that bottom item. To maximize the advantage of ThruLines, you've got to post a tree, or else they have no idea of how they can help you. And so this is the most important slide of the day. You've got to post a tree, or they cannot help you. So, and the better the tree, the more they help. So if you can post a tree at least 3 or 4 generations, if you can do 5 or 6, it's even better. This was also, incidentally, a consideration for the DNA circles. Now, the ThruLines are going to extend out quite a ways, and we'll talk about that. So here we go. We click on ThruLines, and they are going to sequence you through all the people you've got in your tree. So the default position is you're going to look at all your ancestors. Now, they have a special category that we'll talk about later for potential ancestors, or some that are just from your tree. So this is the opening page, and they're going to go out, first of all, your parents, their parents, their parents, and so on. Now, I'm going to do the flip side of this and show you my tree that goes out. Well, this goes out 5 generations. This is my pedigree chart. You see center left, there's my name. And you can see that then I show my parents, their parents, their parents, and so on. And so actually, good old ThruLines is going to cover all these people 5 generations out. Not only those, but I couldn't fit them all in a nice readable chart. It goes out even 2 generations beyond that. So they're going to give you a lot of help for a lot of generations. And in my case, they gave me data, through line data. They identified some 800 people who I have matches with, good scores with, and they also match, and Ancestry tells me exactly where with different ones of my ancestors. Now on this chart, just to clarify, I'm calling it generation 0, and then my folks are number 1, and then so on, and 2, 3, 4, 5. So you see on the right-hand edge, when we go out there that far, 5 generations, we should have how many? 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. So no, I don't have all 32 because I've got some empty spots. And I suspect I'm kind of like a lot of other people. In fact, before DNA, I had more empty spots, but DNA has kind of helped fill in some gaps. Just to show you the next generation, I've put my dad on the left and 5 more generations out. And so this is really going back a long, long ways when you go back 6 generations. But see, I've got a lot of those people. And then when people match me, and they also descend somehow by some different route to, they match up with the same person, those will be my 5th cousins because we're 6 generations out. So now, incidentally, I've made a note of here, this down below, each one of those ancestors gets a full page, actually maybe a couple of pages, with the ThruLines set up. Now here's a similar chart for my mother's side of the house. Now let's go back and look at my dad. See, he's mostly filled in out there to the 6th generation. A lot of his people, most of them descended from German ancestors, and those people are really good record keepers. And so you can really go back practically forever. Now that's the case in a lot of other countries too. Not so much so in the US. It gets harder in the US. And that's where my mother's people, who were early arrivals, you can see a lot more empties in her family tree. And so maybe this is where, well, it is where Ancestry, the DNA results are going to help me more, because that's where I have my gaps. I'm going to jump ahead now. I'm going to jump way ahead. I haven't really told you everything.
Yeah, James.
Yeah.
James, we have a question about the previous slide that maybe we shouldn't leave for later. Why the exclamation mark and the red triangle on the generation chart?
Let me go back a moment. No.
Yeah, I think by Mary Owen. I think that's what the question is about.
No, say it again. Was it
by Mary Owen? There's an exclamation mark and a red triangle to the right of Mary Owen. Mary Owen's kind of in the upper middle. So starting from the top, middle, Jonathan Tracy, Henry Tracy, Mary Owen, and there's a A little up, a little higher. Right there. See the little red triangle with the exclamation point in it? In the same rectangle where Mary Owen's name is?
Oh, that right there.
Yeah. They someone wanted to know what that meant.
Oh, that's just something special with whichever company I'm doing business with. I think this was a family search chart, and family search has different symbols that they'll give you. And this one, I think, means maybe there's some question about it, or maybe you should do something else, or maybe it's like a maybe. But
was that a symbol that you added or that was automatically added?
No, that was automatically added in this case by family search. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, now here we are with this really great, I'm kind of proud of this because I just pieced this all together all by myself. And so you see what it is. This is a nice fan chart. I'm at the bottom center. And so then these concentric circles go out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 generations. And so these are all of my people, mother's side, father's side, for the father's on the left. And then for each person, because I have each one of those people in my family tree that is posted on Ancestry, Ancestry does its work and tells me how many people and who they are for each one of those specific ancestors. Now, this kind of makes me feel good. If I go out there part way to the left and I see numbers like 23, 45, 27, different ones, I know I'm getting a good bunch of people who match me at all these different levels. And this kind of makes me feel like I think maybe I've got it right. Maybe my family tree data that I might have even questioned the accuracy, it's all good. Now, going out from the center, you see, I'll show you how this works. See, here I am at the bottom, and here's my folks. There's a 1 there. That means one person is descended from my folks. This is a nephew of mine. Then I go out to my grandparents' level. There are 7 people they have found who also descend from my grandparents. That's like my first cousins, or maybe my first cousin's children. And then I go out to the second, second cousin level, third, and so on. Now you go way out, let's go way up to where the blue arrow is in the upper right, where it says 167. This is a case of where Ancestry has found 167 people who also match out there at the sixth generation level. These are my 5th cousins. Now, ordinarily, I would have no idea who these 5th cousins are because maybe I've created a tree just going out there one person at a time, and this father and mother, the next father and mother, but I don't really have information on all of their children and their children. But this is what I'm going to get now from Ancestry. Now, I'll show you this chart again, but that was just for kind of a little spoiler for things that are coming up here. Now, some comparisons with the old days of DNA circles. I told you I had 22 of them, but look at how many people and how many people I was working on that great big chart. Now, it used to be, second bullet, that you needed to have at least 5 matches to qualify for a DNA circle. Now that's not true. You can, even if there's only 1, they'll show you that 1. And then there will be a fair number of others. So let's go back to see what we're going to find in different levels of relationships here. I showed you the screenshot of where my parents were. Now this time, here's my 4 grandparents. And then next to them, here are great grandparents. And so, and then after they get through dealing with those, then they'll give us the next set of the further out relationship and so on. But right here, see, I want to call your attention to my great grandparents. Here is on the father's side, here's Nicholas Adam Baker. And so let's think about him, because when I click on that, up there under his name, ThruLines for Nicholas Adam Baker, it says ThruLines uses ancestry trees to suggest you might be related to 19 different matches that way. Now, I know that he had 10 different children and they had a bunch of children, so I've got probably a lot of people who are potentials here to look at, but here they all are. Ancestry has found them. I don't have to turn a hand. Look at that left-hand arrow. For Nicholas Adam Baker's daughter, Catherine, 5 people who descended from Catherine, Ancestry has found them. They have good scores on Ancestry, and Ancestry has their family tree laid out as well as mine. And they do the same thing for all of these other different 10 children. And so here we're continuing with all of them. And on this one, you see bottom near the right, there's my picture. I come out of, there's my dad and his father, and we're right back to Nicholas Baker. See, it only takes me 1, 2, 3 steps and I'm there. And a lot of these people, some of them get there in 3 steps, sometimes 4, but Ancestry has found all of them. This kind of makes me feel good because it says my paper tree is correct. I had identified all of these different people in my tree. And yes, the scores would suggest that indeed they are biological relatives. Here's a picture that I think is really kind of useful to explain the story of the DNA matches and to explain about finding 3rd cousins or 5th cousins or different kind of cousins. Because here's the banyan tree with roots that are going up, and then maybe some roots that are going down. They have both upward and downward. And so if you pick a particular spot in the tree, maybe it's 4 or 5 generations up for me, but look at all those people that might also connect at that same point. Now they're coming up or down a different route than what I did, but nevertheless, we all connect at that same point. Now, I'm going to suggest that a really good family tree has some depth to it. And so in order for you to really do really good with finding DNA people, the more you can find, the more different surnames that you can add in there, the more connections you can make. Here's a comment on the right side. If I had a full 5-generation family tree that went both up and down, DNA analysis would really be a breeze because I would already have identified all those people. Now, of course, nobody really has that kind of a situation. We maybe kind of do good if we have, a partial tree at different levels, but this would be kind of a nice ideal. And it also, I think it might be helpful to show you where we connect with all those different people at all these different points on the tree. this is just another nice banyan tree. Now we're back to Nicholas, and here I'm just showing a little further. Here's his daughter, Catherine, and different people who descend from Catherine. And here they're going to show how each one of those 5 people connect with Catherine. And then they, of course, they go back to the step further, and it's back to Nicholas Baker, my great grandfather. And we're all hooking up at that same point in the family tree. Now, again, I'm going to make this comparison with the DNA circles just to let you know that this time you can trust them. They did the right thing. This time, I only had with DNA circles, I barely had a match with Nicholas Baker. I had to have 5 people to qualify, and I had 6, but now they found 27. So now here's my reminder. If you don't post any family data, you get no results. You don't get ThruLines. This time we're going out a little further. We're going to the second great-grandparents. So this is the father of my great-grandfather, Nicholas Baker. Notice there's a name change because Andrew Jacob Becker lived all of his life in Germany. The Beckers later became Bakers in America. So notice that he goes back, you know, he's born 1785. And so any connection I have there is going to be, well, I probably don't know those people because they're third cousins. But here's my list of all these different great-great-grandparents. So these people are out there 4 generations now. One of them is named Elijah Elifritz. I pick on him because he's got a nice alliterative name, and for a couple of reasons. Now, I know if I can find people who also match with Elijah, they are my 3rd cousins. Now, here was the story with Elijah. He was born way back when, 1796. And so if I get matches, they'll be 3rd cousins. 3rd bullet. A few years ago, this is before I was doing DNA work, he was my end of line person. And even then, I thought the data on him might be a little shaky because he's out there in the hills of West Virginia. They don't have very good records in that time period. Nevertheless, Ancestry gave me a DNA circle, and now let's see what ThruLines will do. Up there where the top arrow go across there, they have found 43 DNA matches where people go back, just like I do, to Elijah. You see where they're showing where I am, JB, that's me. That's several other group, several people, 16 more of them descend from Anna Rebecca Elifritz. There are 27 of them who descend from her sister. I don't know any of those people. They are strictly DNA matches, but they have good scores. They show good trees, or maybe they show a partial tree that Ancestry has been able to connect them. And so now Elijah is really a solid ancestor. In fact, he is so solid that it turns out that I'm able to go back further and connect with his parents and their parents. And so this is the great value of ThruLines and the DNA results. See, DNA Ancestry with ThruLines is finding a lot more than they had with the DNA circles. And here's Elijah with his daughter, Mary Jane. This was not Mary Jane's not my ancestor. She's the sister of my ancestor, but all of these people are connected with me. They are my third cousins. Now, let me go back to the second great grandparents again. I just showed you Elijah, but I want to show you Perry. And there was a problem with Perry initially because I had no DNA circle for him. And the result, the problem was, I did not know that he was my biological ancestor. I thought another man was, a man named Pettis. It was the Pettis family, and everybody thought the daughter was a Pettis. But it turned out, and this happens, Ancestry showed me 0 matches for anybody in the Pettis family. There was something wrong, and the thing that was wrong, as the DNA people have this term, they say it is a non-parental event. And so later I learned that a man named Perry is really the father, and I've got a bushel basket full of Perry connections, relatives, common ancestor people, but none of the Pettis group. And so DNA will strictly do business with your biological tree. And so when this happens, it may end up that you say, well, I'm now going to have to deal with both a biological tree as well as my original, call it a regular tree. But here with Perry, they found some 21 people there, and they found enough people that I was able to identify, exactly who and where and what happened way back there in the 1800s. Here is another person that if I find connections, they'll be third cousins. And so here's a man who lived his whole life in Germany. He never emigrated. And his son did, and I have a lot, well, not a lot, I have a fairly small number of matches with the Paulus family. And I didn't have any DNA circles. And so I'm looking now for the immigrant's father. And so his name is Johannes Paulus. He's born way back when, 1789. And so I have a number of people who are connected with me, the right-hand arrow, but I know those people because they're descended the same way I am. But here's a new person on the left, Lisa Dupé. And so who is she? Because Ancestry says, yeah, she is your third cousin. And so then they show this is the route that she goes back to get to the same place where you are. And I don't know any of these people, but she gets a good score, and that's what she says her tree looks like. And she would descend from a sister of my same person who lived in that small German town. She had information here about her father and their father, and but our connection was back there in Gottelsheim. And so I did not, before looking at this information, I would have no idea to identify who she was or where she was, but ThruLines did it for me. Now let's go out even further. Let's go out to the next level and see how far this is. Second bullet, father, grandfather, and out, out, out. And so now if we find a person who matches at that level, those are fourth cousins. I've got to tell you that on average, the scores really diminish by the time you're at a fourth cousin level. On average, they're down to about 14, or if it's a first, fourth cousin one time removed, maybe only 7. They're down there to where the cutoff point is going to wipe some of them. So we may not find too many people like that. Now, how many are there that I'm going to find who are these third great grandparents? Well, there are 32 possible. I have some empty spots in my tree, so I only have actually 26. Here's that same picture that I showed you, where here on the right-hand side, you see there would be 32 if it were a full slate, but there's a few missing near the bottom. So I have 26 that I am aware of. So, but those 26 I can certainly work with. And if they're way off in Germany and they're not selling too many of those ancestry kits in Germany, maybe I won't find too many people from over there, but maybe I'll find just a few who accidentally drifted in. And so here on the right-hand side, you see here is a person, DU, a great match. And so, see, some of these others, they were not so great because they're kind of descending in the same general way that I did. But that DU goes down up really a very different route. It's kind of a, think of the banyan tree and think of a kind of a way different route that the DU goes to match my same person, but a good score there of 27 and a bona fide fourth cousin. And it's because Ancestry with ThruLines was able to connect. I want to move on and talk a little bit about the potential ancestors, because this is really something special that they do for you. Sometimes because they just have such a pot full of data that they maneuver that around, and it's kind of an automatic way that they set up their algorithms. And so they identify a few people that they say, we think this person might be your ancestor and you don't have them on your list, but maybe it's good. So so this is where, when they say that, you know that they're shooting a little bit in the dark, and so you want to verify the accuracy. I have found some of those, maybe most of them, are likely correct, some others that may not be. But they give you enough information that you can kind of reason it out. So this time, let's click on potential ancestors and see who they're giving me and how many. They have given me 37 different people. I mean, I can spend hours with sort of saying, are they on the right track? Did I miss something? And so here, those first two, the beach and some others, that was connected with that new biological ancestor. And I'm not quite so concerned about those new biological ancestors, but some of these others, the Bruce family is a family I've had trouble with, and maybe they can help me. Here was this family that I have this great grandmother. I'm not even sure exactly when she was born, because she was out there on the prairie in the state of, well, she was in Tennessee and Illinois. And so I'm not even sure about her parents. Now, she listed a couple names on a marriage license. So that's what I'm kind of working with. But I cannot find her in Tennessee. I can't find the parents. And so, but one thing I have found is that I have a big bunch. I mean, like over 100 connections on Ancestry with different people who match this Bruce family. I know that somehow the Bruce family is solid, and I know that they all go back to the same man who immigrated in this country and who was born in the 1700s. But between the old early John Bruce and my perhaps Alexander Bruce, there's a big gap, and I've got to figure out just what was happening here. But here's what Ancestry did. First of all, they had given me a DNA circle, and they said, maybe, just maybe, you are connected with one of those sons of John A. Bruce named Benjamin. And so they defined him as a potential. And here they have found a bunch of people who also descend from that man. And so here's my own group, and then here's these other groups that might also descend, and they might. So this is the kind of material you can work with that they give you when you're off there trying to shoot halfway in the dark because it's in Tennessee and you just can't find the right data. So I know that the Bruce people were just really a prolific family. One reason I know is because I've found so many people who are Bruce connected, who are also connected to me with the DNA. Well, I know that Benjamin is a possibility, but he also had brothers, he had cousins, he had other people. There are different possibilities that somehow, and I'm working on that, but they're giving me a lot of material to work with. Now, here we are with, we're going back further this time. And so here is Johann George Ilgenfritz. Later, some of the family members changed their name to Ellefritz. I don't know why, but it's the same family. And so here we are looking at a guy who was in the Revolutionary War. And now he lived in Pennsylvania, so there's very good records for him, but somehow there were not quite so good records for his parents. Now, remember, I told you about Elijah. So here, look at this list. Here's my mother, her father, her mother, and there's Elijah. And then with the wonders of DNA, I have now added Elijah's father and his father, the Revolutionary War man. And first of all, they had given me a nice DNA circle, but now let's see what they do with ThruLines. Now remember, here's my picture, and this shows you how far out he is. He's out there in that furthest concentric circle. He is in the 6th generation from me. And so if I have ancestors, if I have connections with that ancestor, other people who also descend from him, they will be 5th cousins. Now look at that top line where it says ancestry trees suggest you might be related to 138 of those people. And that's a wow, because that's just an awful lot. In fact, that number keeps going up all the time because we get more and more people who join Ancestry, and this was a prolific family. So here they list, he had several children, I think 9 or 10, and they all had a bunch of children. You go right down the center section there, from Johann himself to daughter Catherine, and there are 31 people, courtesy of Catherine, who are matching me one way or another with fairly good scores. Those are my 5th cousins. And so here are some of them. Here's going down from Catherine. You can see with her different children, 6 of these and 4 of those and so on. fifth cousins. Now, just a note, a fifth cousin on average only scores a centimorgan score of about 3.5. That's not very much. In fact, that doesn't even make the cut because the cut is 8. The cut used to be 6, but a year or so ago they changed it and they said, oh, a lot of those low scores don't really help you. And however, some of us would like to have had those scores because we can use some good fifth cousins. But nevertheless, the ones who score higher than 8, there will be some, because some people do score maybe a little bit higher than you expect them to. And especially if they would be like fifth cousins once removed. So, and see, indeed, Ancestry has found for me a good number of those people. And so it's nice to work with our high scoring matches. They're the close relatives. They're easy to place and it's good high reliability, but realistically, the ones we're going to look for are fourth, fifth, or sixth cousins. And those are the ones that will probably help more of us than those others. I have a new presentation that I give now that is called Surprise. The lower scores will help you the most. I'm giving that at the Jamboree this summer. But here's the idea again of those centimorgan scores and how so many of those fifth cousins will not make the cut, but happily a lot of those people come from very large families, and a certain amount, maybe 10–15% of the people will score a lot higher than they should. And that's what I've said here with that second bullet. It's because of the world of recombination. People don't always get the average score. Some get more DNA from one ancestor than they do from another. And so second bullet, about maybe 10–15% of the matches score a lot higher than they should. And those are the ones that we love because they're the ones that are going to help us. And indeed, if we have really large families, I don't know how many descendants there really were from those Ilgenfritz, Ellefritzes, but if we're only dealing with 10% of them, we've still got enough to work with. So this is what ThruLines does. It helps you find the low scorer matches. And so this is where I'm telling you now to pay more attention to those lower scores, especially if you're trying to work with fifth or fourth cousins or people like that. Well, second bullet, once ThruLines shows us the people they think are our matches, we can then go a step further and verify the accuracy because we can look. They have shown us what that person's tree looks like. And if it looks kind of spotty or shaky, then we consider that. But certainly with the Ilgenfritzes, that was for me a real DNA genealogy success because, as I told you, Elijah, he was all I could find, and I wasn't even quite sure about Elijah. But now I've accumulated so many good scoring matches. Their trees say that, yeah, they're in that same line. They match one another too. And so because they have shared matches with each other, that's another solidifying fact. And so now I literally have hundreds of Ellefritz matches, and they're all telling that same story. And a lot of them now are also non-posters, but they qualify because they have shared matches with those people. All right, here is Epinetus. What a nice name. and he's way back there. He was a success because there was a DNA circle, but now you see there's even more DNA through line matches. And so some of these are in my own group. You see, there's JB down there in the center section, but a lot of them come from brothers and sisters of my ancestor. And then remember, to qualify to get in the through line business, you have to post your tree, but half the people do not post their tree. And so you can sort of figure that these numbers are probably twice that. Now let's move out really far. We're getting into really early people. They're born like 300 years ago. And so to find people like that, I'm not sure if we can find too many, because, you know, when you're talking about sixth cousins, 7 generations, that's really kind of hard. So this is my grandfather on the left. I have to bump it out 2 generations just to get all these people on the chart. And you see, in theory, I could have, I think, 64 people out there, but I don't. You know, I'm beginning to lose more of them. But if I match out there, if I can find a person who matches me, they post a tree, I post a tree, they could be my 6th cousins. And so here's the list. And so because I have included a number of people on that list, they show me what they've got. And surprisingly, they have found a few people. I think it's surprising because that's really far back. And of course, the scores that people have for DNA get diluted by the time you're somebody's 6th cousin, because, you know, how many people, how many scores are you getting? You got to get it just from the right ancestor, and you've got so many ancestors out there. But here is a person, NV, who scored 10. Ancestry says this is your 6th cousin. And here is the tree that person has posted. And so you see that they're going right back to the same place that I go back. And so it looks like it could be. And so we're going to take another hard look. So we click on a couple of things and we say, all right, let's look at that person way back when. Here's a person born 1706. This is in the other person's, you know, her data. And so as I look at them, I say those are the right little villages and they fit my data. And look at that, isn't it great? And so indeed, it looks like that person qualifies. Now, here's one that I'm not sure is going to qualify. This one, Ancestry says, this person's going to be like a 6th cousin and is going way back. And so here I am on the left, and I've kind of copied this data very carefully. But now as I look at the other, I say, hey, there's none of the same German towns. There's, I think maybe some of those people just happen to have the same name. And so I'm really kind of skeptical about that. And so that's why you need to kind of double check some of those things. And so in this case, I didn't see any Becker names. I didn't see the right, her people came to Virginia. That was the wrong place. And so I don't know exactly how Ancestry made what I'm calling a misconnection. So be careful. Now, I told you earlier about John Bruce, who came to this country and was the original immigrant. And so even though he is a potential guy for me, look at that, I click on him, they have found 77 matches. And he's back there. These are my fifth cousins, and it looks solid, but I don't know whether it's Benjamin or one of those others. In fact, I have more people on that left side, James Thomas Bruce. And so, maybe he's the one. So because they found 32 people there and there were only 15 with Benjamin, I'm kind of thinking maybe somehow James Thomas is really my ancestor, but I'm still working on that. Here, this is one of my Bruce connections, and how she goes up to James Thomas and how maybe I would. And so if we connect there, we're fifth cousins. If we connect a little later, it might be, or a little earlier, we'd be maybe sixth cousins. But in any case, I had a lot of really good data to work with here. So I'm kind of leaning toward the James Thomas, but I still like to find some other piece of evidence. The common ancestors, what they call common ancestors, those are the people who are your connections, who in ThruLines, they have found those people. And so these are the people who have replaced the shared ancestor hints. And so Ancestry flags those matches and identifies them and calls them common ancestor. That's just their way of calling it. So here, these are my very highest scores. So here is my nephew, but now look, my nephew is not even considered a common ancestor. Why not? He did not post a tree. See, it says no trees for Rob Baker, but he's my nephew. Now, John Tracy, my first cousin, posted a tree. He gets to be called a common ancestor. And there's that little green leaf showing that that's what he is. My next person did not post a tree, but I happen to know that she's my first cousin. That's the way it works. So if I click on common ancestors, or if I find a person who's a common ancestor, they show me where we're connected. And so here is a person who connects with my grandparents. So they say this is your first cousin once removed. So now I can just simply click on common ancestors and get my list. And so here they all are in the right-hand column. It says common ancestor for all of these, and it's going to list them from top score on down to all of my 800 people that they have identified. Now the value of this, it's just almost so overwhelming that I say, I kind of wish that I had only started today to work on my ThruLines and common ancestors, because it's great to see these names, because here they are, and I can identify where they fit in my family tree. Now, by comparison, when I had shared ancestor hints, I only had 148 people, but now see, I've got many more than that. And so all of these people who are designated common ancestors, Ancestry tells you exactly where they fit. And you know which family group or subfamily group they belong to. And here I've just done some comparisons by the numbers. In short, with ThruLines, you just get many, many more, probably quadruple. Now, back to our original great picture. Now you see what I have come to But now take a look at the lower left-hand arrow just above that where it says 49 and 47. That's Elijah Elifrit. That's where I was before the world of DNA. But now I've added all of those people really because of ThruLines and also some help from shared matches. The same story on some of those other groups. Now this is the payoff that I think of. Now the really initial payoff is that this gives you a great jump start for your analyzing your different DNA matches. So if you want to know who are the people in my Elifrit's group, my Bruce group, my Baker group, Tracy group, I immediately, in this case, I start off with all these people and how great that was. And so in a way, fourth bullet, Ancestry's ThruLines offer a kind of an index to all your matches. See, they can't really give you an index because, you know, half the people don't even post their tree. Now, here's the other half, and also the equally greatest feature, best feature of Ancestry, and that is the shared match thing. Because if you plug in your starter data from ThruLines, then you can deal with all the unknown people being people who didn't post anything. So all you need to do to define those people is you click on that person and then you click on shared matches to see who are the people that you and your unknown person also have common matches with. Well, what you will find is, in more cases than not, there will be a bunch of names on that list, and they will all come from the same family group. And so if you and your unknown person have 20 different matches and they're all Elifrit's people, of course your new person is also an Elifrit. This is kind of a straightforward process. And by using the shared match routine along with the ThruLines, that's what it's going to get you. Now, just to show you, here's my top 35 matches. This is easy because you see in my color-coded second column from the right, here's my nephew, here's my first cousins. Then I get into some second cousins, different kind of second cousins. And on the right side, I've indicated who the big ancestor is. Is it on the Tracy side or the Baker side? But this was easy because these people all have the kind of scores that you get for first and second cousins. Let's go down a little further. Let's go down to my top 100 scores. Now, this is a blow up of the ones from the left. And now as we go down further on the right side now, see all the way down to about score number 60, we're still dealing mostly with second cousins, and that's where we are. But then second column from the right, you see the green ones, that's where third cousins begin to kick in. And we begin to get more diversity. And so we get some Elifrit's people and Perry people and different ones. And now I will tell you, this is a good thing to know. Only about half of these people posted their tree. I have even put a column in the chart. Tree, did they post a tree or not? And like on the left-hand side, third column over, you see a lot of no's there. But I know who they are because they had shared matches with all those other good people. And so it's a no-brainer they are also in that same subfamily group. Now here's the really super payoff possibilities from what ThruLines and the shared matches do for you. I found so many matches in that Elifrich group that I extended my tree. Same story for my early Tracy's. I extended that line. The Owens line I extended, and the new Perry group too. Here I've given you another version of that fan chart, but I've put a star by different people where really good different things happened with the DNA. With Elifrich, I've told you a couple of times that I now can go back a couple further generations because of what I learned with the ThruLines and shared matches. Pettis, the next star over to the right, Pettis turned out not even to be a true biological ancestor, so I had to swap him out for the Perrys. The others, I was able to get a lot more good information. We have come to the end. Let me rehearse some of the, maybe about a 10 or so really good conclusions. First of all, of course, you know what I think of ThruLines. You know that DNA circles is gone, but ThruLines is really better. But to make it happen, you've got to post as detailed a family tree as possible. You need to have a page for each of your direct ancestors. And the more pages, the more ancestors, the better. And then we saw how it was arranged. They start off with your parents, their parents, and so on. Now, the way Ancestry does it is that they can build on a person's partial tree because they have so many things, so many piles of data in their data bank. And so they have different ancestry trees, public trees, and so on. And so you're going to get a lot of information there that they will give you, and it's just sitting there waiting for you to capitalize on it. They'll give you this information for your ancestor, even if there's only one or two that connect. With potential ancestors, that's even another opportunity. But number 9 says, don't always take that as the absolute truth. Use ThruLine data to define your matches, because that will jumpstart your whole program. And then if you can use that in combination with the shared match feature, you can define the location of just about, all the matches you've got, any that you're really interested in. And the big payoff is, at least it was for me, this is where you might really be able to break through your brick walls and find some really useful data. So we have come to the end. I'll click the button and we'll look at one another's smiling faces and we'll talk. David, are you still there?
Okay, yes, here I am. Okay, I am going to go ahead and allow our participants to unmute themselves so they can ask questions directly. Let's see here. Okay, people can unmute themselves now. All right, who would like to ask a question?
I have a question.
Great, go ahead.
Okay, I'm working with a cousin. His name is Joe, and he has a tree on Ancestry and has done a DNA match or DNA test. His daughter has also taken her test, and they show as a match. But when I go to the ThruLines and I go to grandparents, it says 0 DNA matches for all 4 of his grandparents. But yet his daughter matches him. So I'm not sure how that works. But then when I go down to the next generation, the great grandparents, I have DNA matches. I have 5 for his one great grandparent, 4 for another, 1 for another. So he is definitely in that family. Does that make sense? In that family. But yet he's not showing at the grandparent level, he's not showing any matches, it says.
Without seeing it, I can't tell for sure what's happening there, but what might be happening is that if you think back to that chart that I told you I was proud of, the big fan chart, the 7 different generations, some people will match you. Let's say, think about Elijah. Some of them will match me at Elijah's level, but some others, instead of matching there, they will match more at his grandfather level. And I think maybe this is what Ancestry is trying to do, is to sort out the ones that they say, this guy connects at the level of your 4th ancestor, or here's another one who connects at the 6th level. Now, one way that you go through that to look is to see, they're trying to say, where did they get their DNA from? So I wouldn't worry too much about whether or not they say that they're connected at one level or another, as long as they're connected. And I think you say that, yeah, they connect back there 3 generations instead of 2 or something like that. And it could be that Ancestry figures that's where they're really getting that particular DNA from.
Okay.
In fact, I think it maybe gets even more complicated than that, because see, I've talked about, like I go back 3 generations to Nicholas Baker, and I get a lot of people in common. Well, maybe we're really matching on the mother's side, on Nicholas's wife. And so see, sometimes, you get into little nuances, I'll call them, but one way or another, it works.
Do we have any other questions?
Yes, I have a question, please.
Go ahead.
I have a particular DNA match that's around 26 centimorgans. And I understand with the ThruLines about going to the, parents, grandparents, etc. And then, if finding you all these possibilities. And I understand about selecting, that person to find in common. But maybe I'm missing something. Is there a way to select that person and then have ThruLines tell me its guess of how we're connected? Did I miss that?
Yeah, ThruLines should. Let me see. Let me.
I know the end result. I like to match to this person, and we have a DNA match. But we don't know how we're connected through relatives.
Okay, here's what you do. You go to that person, that you go to your ancestor, that your common connection on ThruLines. So let's say this guy, a score of 26, that's maybe like a 3rd or 4th cousin.
Oh no.
So whichever person it is, you go there, and ThruLines says, yes, this is your match. You 2 people match. And then you click on, I want the list of all the people who match that particular ancestor. And maybe there's 20 different people who match, but you kind of scroll down to this same person and you click there, And then there is a way to say, where they will say, how do we match? And you click on that, and that's where they will show you your tree, the other person's tree. I think I gave you several examples of those kinds of things. But you should be able to get that for every person.
Okay, real good. Thank you.
Okay, who else has a question?
I have a comment.
Mhm.
I've been able to prove two lines of two nationalities in my through ThruLines, which I technically don't have any DNA matches to. That the DNA results say that, like my Irish line, and this is a great grandfather, but I have no Irish in me. And then also the Native American side, on my mother's side, I've been able to prove both of those through ThruLines, but not through my DNA because of common ancestors. So it's kind of cool.
Well, thank you for that. Apparently it worked, huh?
Yep.
I see that Sue Olmsted has her hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I have a comment. I have used ThruLines, and then I take the person that I have found as a shared match and gone back to their record and sent a message. And through this, I have been able to request an email address, and many of them have complied. And we have Zoomed, and once we see each other face to face and start discussing it, it's amazing the great conversations that we've had. And I've just had many friendships develop from ThruLines. So there's a lot more to it than just what we do on our charts.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have any more questions or comments? Terry Dunlap, go ahead and unmute yourself.
So this has been such an eye-opening talk. But now I just want to make sure the ThruLines, I have to, especially far back, I have to view a little bit with suspicion because they depend on people's trees with research, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so the DNA, they can't lie with their DNA. But if I look at their trees, I was just, while you're talking, I'm trying to, see what I see. And I see that someone has taken a similar name, but they've linked it to the wrong person. I know they have. So that's one of those things that, okay, that's suggestive, but I have to be suspicious.
That's right. Every now and again, they will, they'll give you one that, maybe it was the same name or something, but it just is not the right person.
Yeah, it's the same name, wrong person. So is that due to the person posting the tree has the wrong information, or Ancestry's link up is wrong, or where does that come from?
Well, I think Ancestry makes the mistake because they're going to compare based on, I'm not sure what their sequence of thought is, whether they say, first of all, we'll say, can we match the name of the person, the date of the person, or something like that? But they'll try to match 2 or 3 things, and then they'll say, okay, we've got enough information, that's your person. Well, the score, though, says you matched him somewhere. And so this gets to be the tricky thing. But based on the score, I know that there are some people that they have said to me, yeah, this person, based on his name, maybe he's on your father's side of the house, but maybe based on the score, it's really on the mother's side of the house or something like that. Like, you know that you're connected with them somewhere, but maybe not necessarily the exact spot that they have suggested, or you could make a mistake yourself that way.
Okay, so if the fact that the Irish use the same 10 names for the entire population could cause me some problems. Thank you so much.
Okay, Tom Cluster, looks like you have a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes. This is a minor point, but I'm curious, Mr. Baker, if you've seen this before. On my ThruLines, generally, there's one color for men, another color for women. And usually it's correct. But sometimes some of the women are shown in the color for men, even though it, for example, even my mother is shown that way. It knows it's my mother, it says mother. And if I look at any of the derivative trees related to these people, they've always got it right. But on this, I just wonder if you've seen that. It just seems to me that somehow or other, when they construct this page, they're making a mistake occasionally, not always.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that they're like they build the chart, and they well, mostly though, they will say like, I'm connected to my great grandfather. How many other people are? Maybe 42 people. Then how many are connected to the great grandmother? Maybe it's the same 42 people, but maybe yes, maybe no. And in real life, I know that some of those scores are really going to trace back to the one or the other. And that's where we kind of get into some tricky little things.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any more questions or comments? Looks like there's a comment in the chat. When you get back that far, that DNA could be coming from a total different family line than the one they are showing you, and needs to be considered when you know that tree is in error. Also, so many copy wrong trees that can also make the picture look right when it is wrong. Karen, you want to expand on that in voice, or let your question stand as stated in the chat?
I think you understand what I mean. If there's 10 people that put the copy trees and it's all to the wrong ancestor, they could still be showing DNA matches, but it's not from that tree. It's from all the other possibilities, because when you get that far back, that DNA could be coming from all kinds of places, and you could just coincidentally match those people on those other lines. And I've heard of people telling me they have this happen. So just something to think about and watch out for. I was thinking about it when the other lady was talking about she didn't get DNA matches and she knew that tree was wrong, or she had them and she knew the tree was wrong. So
okay, I'll give you a thought on that, which is that I know what you're saying, that can happen. You know, they can make mistakes. They can kind of pin it on the wrong place. But one thing that you can do is, let's say you get a match and they say, this is your 5th cousin and you're both descended from old Ilgenfrid. So then I click on that person and I say, okay, now the score wasn't too high. He only got a 10. But then I click on him and I say, do he and I have some shared matches? Now, all of a sudden, it turns out, yes, we have about 20 different shared matches, all of whom are in the Elefritz family. And I say, aha, he's okay. You know, he's a good Elefritz. Now, if on the other hand, they had said to me, he's your fifth cousin, I click on his matches, shared matches, and either he has 0 shared matches, or maybe he even has shared matches, let's say, with some Baker people, I'd say, hey, something has gone haywire here. But the feature that you use at that point to double check is your shared matches. Because if you have both the score and Ancestry says he's good, he's your fifth cousin at the Elefritz level, and you have, you know, those 20 shared matches with other Elefritz people, it's a done deal. You've got them. But if you're missing something that could be questionable, you just might be missing something. We are looking for patterns. And so the pattern is, like if I find 137 people who are all fifth cousins, and the bulk of those say, yeah, we all are coming from that same route, and we also have shared matches with other Elefritzes, we've got a winner. And so it's a combination of the 2 major features, the through lines and the shared matches.
Yes, that's exactly right. I'm glad you explained that to everybody, because that's one of the cautions of using through lines. You've got to be aware of that, of checking just what you explained. And that's what I've been doing too. And I'm with you though. I have found most of mine are accurate. So I love them too, those through lines. Thank you.
Well, David, maybe we have done it. Shall we thank the people?
Jim, when you're talking about verifying, in this case, you're talking about using the shared matches to verify rather than looking for written records, documents, which may that far back not even exist.
It gets harder the further back you go. But again, if you can find somebody who has a reasonable match, and an Ancestry says, we think it might be, and if they've got some shared matches with you in the right family, then you're kind of good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I have a comment. I had a match that I didn't know. She showed up as a first cousin. And so, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I was loud enough. Anyway, so I had a first cousin show up, didn't know who she was, and it turned out that she was adopted. So she asked me, I figured out her birth father was an uncle of mine that had passed away. And she wanted me to figure out who her birth mother was and made me a coordinator for her DNA and Ancestry account. And looking at it, I quickly figured out who her birth mother was, but it was the grandfather that wasn't making sense, her maternal grandfather. So going to the through lines, I was able to figure out that the man that in the record showed as her grandfather was not the true grandfather. And it was one of the Sprain brothers. which really helped solve so many questions. And I could go back through records and everything and follow her mother's family back into the same town of La Crosse, Wisconsin. And it was because of the ThruLines. And it was very helpful to use it as part of the puzzle. So that was really helpful.
Well, that's good.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you very much, James. It's been a great talk. Appreciate you coming on with us. Our next talk is going to be in February. We have them every month, February 26th, again from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. And the topic that we had scheduled was cemetery research with speaker Gina Philibert Ortega. Unfortunately, she has had to cancel, so I'm arranging a new speaker. I'm going to try to keep it on the same subject, cemetery research, but we'll have to see what I can do. She just had to cancel just yesterday, in fact. Anyway, there will definitely be a presentation February 26th, and hopefully it will be on cemetery research also. So got that coming up. I'm going to post the handout once more for those people who are able to download it. And if you're unable to download it, email us at contact@saclibrary.org, and I'm going to post that email address also. Yes, each time you will need to register through our, so there's that question here, will you need to re-register for February 26th? You will need to go to our calendar, to our event calendar at saclibrary.org and register for that for the February 26th talk, and you'll get the same kind of email with the link that you got for this one. So yes, you will have to register for each talk as it comes along. Okay, I'm going to post I'm going to post the handout once more. It is a PDF. There it is. And then also there is the I've got the email address there to ask questions of or to request the handout, and there's also the link to our YouTube channel, and this will be posted to our YouTube channel. So probably it'll go up sometime this next week. Okay, well, again, thank you very much, James. Any last words for our people out there? For our it's been quite a large group today.
Well, thank you all for coming, and it's been a pleasure to be with you. I looked it up the other day. This is my 13th time at the library. And so I recognize a number of names of different people on the list that I have known either in the library or some other group, but nice to be with you.
Wonderful to have you. This is just my second time listening to you speak, and I'm looking forward to more. All right, well, good night, everybody, and thank you for joining us.